Om Gananam Tva Ganapatikam Vamahe Kavim Kavinam Upamasravastamam Jyeshtarajam Brahmanam Brahmanaspata Anashrinvannodivasita Sadhanam Om Sri Sadguru Mahaganadhipataye Namaha Badram Dadadum Badram Garne Vishrunayama Devaha Badram Vashyemakshavargajatraha Sthirairangai Sastanubhihi Vishemadevahitam Yadayuhum Swasti na Indro Vridrashravaha Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti nastarcho Arishtanemihi Swasti no Brihaspadardadhatum Chaja Suvarchalam Vasameda Sri Surya Narayana Swamine Namo Namaha Bhutanadaya Vidmahe Bhavaputraya Dhimahi Tanna Shasta Prachodayat Aditya Kecha Somaya Mangalaya Budaya Cha Guru Shukra Shanibhyascha Rahave Ketave Namo Namaha Anjaneyaya Vidmahe Vayuputraya Dhimahi Tanno Hanumat Prachodayat Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Gurave Sarvalokanam Vishaje Bhavarohinam Vidhaye Sarva Vidyanam Sri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Sadguru Charanarvindabhyam Namaha Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambam Garishyami Siddharabhavatu me sada Sarva Mangala Mangalye Shive Sarvartha Sadike Sharanye Trayambake Devi Narayani Namostute Namo Vradapataje, Namo Ganapataje, Namah Pramadapataje, Namaste Stulambodharaja, Ekadandaya, Shivasudaya, Sri Varadamurtaje, Namo Namaha, Vakradunda Mahagaya, Surya Koti Samadprabha, Nirvignam Guru Medeva, Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada Vinayaka, Disamasta Harihara Devadabhyo Namo Namaha. Sarva Abarada Kshamartam Sarva Mangala Prabhyarcham Alankara Panchamukhadipam Dharadajami Ajavaniyam Samarpajami Divya Raksham Dharajami Indrastomena Panchadashena Madhyamidam Vatena Sakarena Ksharaksham Dharajami Om Haram. Okay, sir.
Namaste. Happy Sankranti. Happy Pongal to all of you. And I'm so pleased and so happy to inform you that Janhavi has agreed to speak on Vaggayakaras. She'll first cover the Trinity, Tyagaraja, Shamashastri, and Dikshitar, and then move on from there. And she's agreed to speak on once a month and every second Thursday. And you all know Janhavi, and without much delay, I'll ask Janhavi to take the podium. And Dr. Nair, Janhavi has agreed to get this recorded and we can upload to the YouTube. And some of friends could not join today, so they'll have an opportunity to listen to this later. After her program, Janhavi, it is up to you whether you want to entertain questions and answers first and then end with Hanuman Chalisa, or however you want to do Hanuman Chalisa towards the end. And we will end the program sharp by 8 p.m. Thank you.
Namaskarams to everyone. Wishing everybody a very happy Thai Pongal or Sankranti to those celebrating. Although this year's celebrations may look very different, the spirit that we celebrate with is the same. And I'm very happy to again be here with you all as part of this series. I would also like to thank Dr. Raju for giving me this opportunity and inspiring this lecture series dedicated to covering composers from the Indian music sphere, a topic that is quite close to my heart, being a student of music myself. It gave me the opportunity to not only study, research, learn more, and grow as a student of music. So I really would like to thank him for the topic suggestion as well. I would also like to offer my salutations to all of my gurus, past, present, and future, without whom I would not be here today. Any success that I may achieve is attributed solely to them, and any flaws and mistakes are solely my own. This series focuses on Vagyakaras. So first, let's understand what the word Vagyakara itself means. Sanskrit in origin, we translate Vagyakara, the word, to mean composer, to mean somebody who creates music. And yet, to many of us musicians, the word Vagyakara means so much more than that. A true Vagyakara is the one who writes the words and creates the music together. Someone who knows how to combine ragam, or the melody, talam, which is the rhythm, with the sahityam, the words, to create an emotional experience that cannot be associated with anything else. A true Vagyakara is someone who truly imbibes exactly what it is to have word and melody fused together in a beautiful joining. Very different from poetry by itself or music by itself without words. We talk about many composers today. The ones who are defined as Vagyakaras are the ones who write the lyrics and the ones who set the music themselves. Many modern day composers will have people who write the lyrics on one hand and someone else who sets the tune. Traditionally, they're not considered Vagyakaras. Today, we'll be taking a look at one of the greatest Vagyakaras of South Indian classical music or Carnatic music, Saint Tyagaraja. As we traditionally pay respects to Ganapati at the beginning of any auspicious event, here is an excerpt from one of Tyagaraja's famed kritis in the Ragam Saurashtram. Shri Ganapatini Sevimpara Shri Ganapatini Sevimpara Shri Ganapatini Sevim Parale Shritamana Ulara Sevim Parale Shritamana Ulara Saint Tyagaraja is the first of the famed trinity of Carnatic music. Three Vagyakaras who wove lyrics and music together in a spellbinding format. Born in 1767 in Tiruvarur, Tyagaraja grew up around music. His family members were involved in music. His grandfather was notably a well-renowned veena player. And he grew up around this musical tradition. When he was very young, he started listening to music and taking it on his own and deciding to sing it on his own. He also found a book that was based off of Narada. And from a young age, Tyagaraja was very much hero worshipped Narada to a sense. So when he found that book, he immediately took it up as his challenge to continue learning music. He began training with Sonti Venkataramanaya when he was quite young. The latter actually found his genius and wanted to train him, offered to train him after hearing him sing and after hearing him compose. Tyagaraja composed his first song in his teenage years when he was about 15 or 16, and he actually wrote it on the walls of his house. The composition itself was called Namo Namo Ragavaya in Desi Katodi. And it's very interesting to understand that Tyagaraja, even at that young age, was talking about concepts like bhakti and pure devotion, and kind of lets us know that over the course of his lifetime, throughout all of his compositions, that common theme of bhakti and pure devotion to Lord Rama exists. His teacher, Swanti Venkataramanayya, informed the king of Tanjavur of Tyagaraja's genius. And the king of Tanjavur, being very impressed, invited Tyagaraja, sent a personal invitation to Tyagaraja to come to his court and adorn his court as a jewel, as a composer, as a singer of his court. Tyagaraja was not interested in money. He rejected the offer to actually go to the court of Tanjavur, and he rejected the king's offer and instead stayed at home and composed a beautiful kriti in the Ragam Kalyani, Nidhi Chala Sukama, which literally translates to, does wealth bring happiness? The entire kriti itself focuses on the idea of what actually makes us happy and ends with the idea that truly devotion to the Lord, in this case Rama, is what brings pure happiness as opposed to chasing any material qualities. A majority of Tyagaraja Sir's compositions composed related to mainly songs on bhakti and pure bhakti, devotion to Lord Rama, but he has also composed on many other deities as well. The initial song was in Ganapati, and he's composed songs on Krishna, on other deities, on Devi as well. Much more limited compared to the songs that he has composed on Rama, but he has composed those songs as well. He also features a lot of philosophy in his lyrics. He talks about how one should be in life and how one should carry the devotion to the Lord. Tyagaraja Sir talks a lot about, in his compositions, about the pureness of bhakti that exists and how he himself has made a lot of mistakes. And yet that bhakti is what allows him to be absolved of his mistakes and move forward. Tyagaraja's compositions are predominantly in pure Telugu, but there are some compositions that he has written in Sanskrit as well. A majority of his Telugu compositions have traveled the world throughout history, and that was predominantly the language that he wrote in. The Telugu that he wrote in was pure Sanskritic Telugu in this case, but he did compose compositions in Sanskrit as well. Many of his compositions are handed down to us for multiple reasons. Tyagaraja himself did not take any steps to systematically codify his music. He did not take any steps to write down the sangadis that he sang, the variations in the sangadis that he sang. He did not take any steps to write down the words. It is said that he chose to sit in front of his deity, his beloved Rama, and sing his compositions on a daily basis, wherever he was. And his disciples actually noted down the compositions, the details on palm leaves. They would write out the notation, they would write out the lyrics, and sometimes Tyagaraja would only sing one composition and he wouldn't sing it the next day. He would sing a different composition. And so his students were the ones who were tasked with writing all of those compositions down, all of the words and all of the sahityam. And it is wonderful that we have today, because of his students' efforts, his Shishya Parampara, or student lineage, we have about 700 songs remaining that are well known and well taken for in our repertoire in Carnatic music. It is said that Tyagaraja Sir actually wrote about 24,000 songs. The number is disputed by historians alike because we don't necessarily have an accurate record. But today we do have about 700 songs coming from his disciples. In pure Telugu, the songs that he wrote were very easy to be sung. Musical experts like Veene Dannamal, Kanchipuram Nayanapillai, all of these yesteryear artists that we think about saw the possibilities for music that they could take out of his compositions. And as he sang and as he gave them compositions and spread compositions, these musicians much later systematically notated those compositions down, which is now how we have the sangadis. We have the actual way of singing these compositions. They were the ones who were able to bring that back to us. Later on, K.V. Srinivasa Iyengar and Rangaramanuja Iyengar and other very eminent musicologists and researchers made an effort to contact all of the various teachers, the families who possessed these palm leaf manuscripts from Tyagaraja Sir's students. They made an effort to contact all of them, and they later published what we now know as the Tyagaraja volume kritis of books that we have. We have the Adi Tyagaraja Hridayam, a lot of books that we have nowadays based off of his compositions. T.K. Govindarao, who was Musiri Subramanya Iyer's student, the doyen of Bhava Sangeetam, as we say, actually brought out a huge volume of Tyagaraja's songs, later in English, as well as Devanagari script. And with those songs, we also have the meaning, as well as the text and the notation as well. Apart from these 700 compositions, Tyagaraja Sir has also written 2 musical plays, or composed 2 musical plays. The 2 musical plays are in Telugu. Prahalada Bhakti Vijayam and Nauka Charitram. Prahalada Bhakti Vijayam has 5 acts with 45 different kritis set in 28 ragas and 138 verses. Nauka Charitram is a much smaller Telugu play. It has 1 act with 21 kritis and 13 ragas. What I found very interesting is that the Nauka Charitram, the story of the boat, as it's called, the Nauka Charitram, is not found anywhere in the Bhagavatam, is not found anywhere in the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Nauka Charitram itself is actually based off of Tyagaraja's own imagination. And again, we all know Tyagaraja as a devotee of Rama. The Nauka Charitram actually is a work on Krishna. I will recite the story in a short format of the actual play. It is said that in this story, the gopis take along with them, they take Krishna with them for a play involving a boat on the river Yamuna. They refuse to get help from Krishna because they don't want his help to actually launch the boat in the water. And they do launch the boat, and then afterwards, Krishna, is playing with these gopis. They start having fun with him, and they start teasing him. They're like, "Oh, we were able to put the boat in the water. We didn't need your help." And Krishna actually summons a storm in retaliation, and the boat gets filled with water. The boat develops a hole, and the gopis start getting really scared, and they actually turn to Krishna themselves to save them. Krishna's response is to seal the hole in the boat by asking the gopis to take parts of their clothing to actually seal the hole in the boat. The gopis did not willingly do this. They were pretty unwilling to actually take off their clothes to actually seal this hole, but it didn't help. So then the clothes are swept away. The clothes do not seal the boat. The clothes are swept away. So now the gopis are left with a boat that is sinking as well as no clothes. And at that point, they realize that only Krishna is the one who can save them, only the Lord. So they have to surrender their pride and they have to say, Krishna, please help us. You're the only one who can help us. And at the end of the story, Krishna actually helps them go through that. And what I think is really interesting here is that in this entire play, there is a very small reference to Lord Rama, arguably Tyagaraja's Ishta Devata, or his favorite deity. There's a much smaller reference to Rama. And the other theme that goes through this is the idea that then there's a need for unqualified surrender, unobjective surrender, total surrender to the Lord. And I think that's very representative of Tyagaraja sir himself, who throughout his compositions, filled with bhakti, filled with so much love and devotion, he unconditionally surrendered to the Lord. And that is sort of the lesson that I think he chooses to teach us through his compositions, especially the Nauka Charitram, as well as all of his compositions. Of his major compositions, there are 5, arguably the most famous of his compositions, the 5 famous Pancharatna Kritis, literally translated to 5 gems. At the time of actually composing these kritis, Tyagaraja did not necessarily put them together as a set. That idea of putting them together as a set actually came a little bit later, because they were 5 kritis that were created in what we call ghana ragams that sound very nice in a madhyama kala pace or a faster pace. And the exposition of these kritis, where he has very philosophical lyrics as well as multiple chittaiswarams, or what we call note expositions with a great deal of actual lyrics that are added into that. These 5 kritis have come to be the most well-known kritis of Tyagaraja, and they are sung all the time at any event relating to him, during Tyagaraja Aradhanes, as well as in general. They are sung as a set of 5 kritis that truly represent one of the best contributions of any Vagyakara to Carnatic music. So with that being said, I will sing a small excerpt of one of them, the Ragam Arabi Sadinchane. Sadinchane, oh manasa 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 sadinchane. even as an abbreviated version, where I did not sing every single Sangadi, you can see the beauty and the complexity with only 3 words, Sadinchane O Manasa. Tyagaraja sir has taken a beautiful small set of words, a beautiful small sentence, and has illustrated it with so many different Sangadis. The Sangadis build up with increasing complexity, with more notes to illustrate not only the ragam itself, but truly the meaning behind what Sadinchane means. Sadinchane O Manasa, as we all know, think O mind, or the mind is accomplished. And I think that aspect that he brings out is not only through the words, but he also brings it out beautifully through the Sangadis as well. The Ganapati Kriti that I sang at the beginning, the excerpt, is actually a Ganapati Kriti from Prahalada Bhakti Vijayam, one of the 2 operas that he wrote. Today, we have 700 compositions. We have countless work that Tyagaraja sir has done, all of the Sangadis and all of the Sahityam that he has created. We have so much of that. And it's important to celebrate his own legacy. His legacy is celebrated around the world. Every year in Tiruvayadu, there is a beautiful festival hosted in January and February as a remembrance. This festival commemorates Tyagaraja himself, his work, his total devotion to Rama, as well as the body of work that he gave to Carnatic music to help develop it into what it is today. During this week-long festival, Carnatic musicians from all around the world converge at his resting place. They come and sing at his temple. The Ganaraga Pancharatnam are sung, and there's also a huge amount of other compositions that they sing as well as part of that. Every year on the Bahula Panchami, thousands of people and hundreds of Carnatic musicians sing the 5 Pancharatna Kritis together in unison. It has become a tradition to sing all 5 of those Pancharatna Kritis as well. As we all know, the Cleveland Tyagaraja Aradhana, arguably the largest music festival outside of India, celebrates Tyagaraja over the course of 2 weeks in Cleveland. It brings thousands of people together, Carnatic musicians, and it's all under the banner of Tyagaraja sir himself. Not the entire Trinity, but Tyagaraja himself. And that is a huge legacy that he has provided to us. One of the philosophies that I think, and one of the takeaways that I think is really beautiful from Tyagaraja sir's music is that people say that with one eye, he looks towards the past, and with the other eye, he looks towards the future. And the reason why this is said is that he adores his Rama. He adores his Rama of devotion with such beautiful words like jewels that fall from his mouth, but also with such beautiful sangadis, with such beautiful jewels of music, with different ragams, countless ragams that he has composed in. So he looks to the past where he thinks about the glory of Rama, and he takes on the treasure that he has been handed to him, the stories of Rama. But with the other hand, he looks to the future. He also pioneered new musical concepts through his kritis. For the first time, we moved from the Kirtana tradition where the charanams all sounded the same as you hear in the Pancharatnam. We moved on to a very different format of kritis that he created. He pioneered a lot of what we call Madhyamakala Sangadis, or faster phrases as he sung them. He pioneered so many musical concepts. And I think that is such a beautiful characteristic about him, that he not only looked to the past, but also looked to the future. Carnatic music, as I know it, as a student of Carnatic music, I think our generation, as we talk about it now, and Carnatic music as it is today, would not be the same without Tyagaraja sir's compositions. The wealth of Sahityam that he gave us, as well as the wealth of Sangadis. The way we sing, even, for example, Arabi from Sadinchane, the way we sing and think about Arabi now is fundamentally altered by his stellar magnum opus composition, Sadinchane, in Arabi. We would not sing it the same way now if we didn't have that composition as a true guideline for us today. Without his compositions, Carnatic music would not be what it is today. He has truly built so much and become a huge part. And as part of that, has become known as the Trinity of Vagyakaras that we worship and we revere as part of Indian music. Students around the world learn Tyagaraja sir's songs. They try to understand the lyrics. We take time to understand how the ragam plays with the words. I, as a student of Carnatic music myself, am very humbled and extremely grateful to say that I come from the direct parampara, Guru Shishya parampara of Tyagaraja sir himself. My Guru is Madhurya Sundar, who learned from Sangeeta Kalanidhi Sri T.N. Seshagopalan, who learned from Shankara Shivam, who was a direct disciple of Manambuchavadi Venkata Subbayar and Harikeshna Mutaya Bhagavatar, who are both direct disciples of Saint Tyagaraja. So I'm very proud, and even today, feel that legacy coming through, as I genuinely want to make sure that not only do we safeguard Tyagaraja Sir's kritis and we safeguard his legacy, but at the same time preserve the wonderful sahityam and the wonderful lineage that has been passed down to us. In conclusion, I would like to sing a small excerpt of again one of Tyagaraja Sir's compositions in the Ragam Sahana. The meaning, as the composer is pleading with the Lord, O son of Raghu, O Rama, to you in prayer, my hands are locked. My hands are locked in prayer to you. The same way you built a bridge across the ocean, the same way you bridged that ocean's gap, so you must lavish upon me, so you must help me, so you must bridge that gap that I have. Vandanamo Raghunandana Vandanamo Raghunandana Setu Vandana Bhakta Chandana Rama Vandanamo Raghunandana Setu Bandana Bhakta Chandana Rama Vandanamo Raghunandana Setu Bandana Bhakta Chandana Rama Vandanamo Raghunandana. With that, I will conclude my presentation. I know Dr. Raju, you mentioned either questions now or questions later. I am fine with either format. Either format works for me.
Okay, now will be good, and then we'll conclude because you will be chanting Hanuman Chalisa. You could do Hanuman Chalisa and Mangala Shlokas. Dr. Nayak, is that okay with you?
It's fine with me, yes.
So, Jahanavi, that just felt like just an introduction. Even next 6 sessions, we could have on Tyagaraja the way you were singing, and I'm not flattering. So there will be many questions, and I just want to start with few. The Ghana Pancharagas and Pancha Kritis.
Yeah.
And can you enumerate or do you want me to?
No, absolutely. I can talk about them as well. So the
And if you don't mind, just a pallavi of each one, so that
okay,
please.
yes, absolutely.
I couldn't ask for more.
Absolutely, of course. I'll sing snippets after explaining. The Pancharatne themselves translates to 5 gems. They're all set to Aditalam, which is a cycle of 8 beats. So the traditional 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They have been notated and written in many formats. Vinay Sundaram Iyer's edition is probably the most comprehensive that we have today. In the Pancharatnes, Tyagaraja, what I think is really beautiful about them is that Tyagaraja has given really an exhaustive treatment on how to systematically develop a ragam. As I mentioned earlier, without Sadhintane to tell us how to sing Arabi, we would sing Arabi very differently. In these 5 kritis, he has taken the ragams that he has, and I'll go through them as well. And he's been very systematic as to how to actually present them, how to go up and down, how to sing sangadis that are fluid, sing sangadis that are short, sing sangadis that are long. He has really given a comprehensive look at exactly how these ragams need to be presented. So traditionally, the 5 Pancharatnes, when they're sung, are sung with Sri Ganapatini, which is from Prahalada Bhakti Vijayam as a Ganapati invocation, but that is not part of the actual Pancharatnes themselves. So the first Pancharatne is Jagadananda Karaka in the Ragam Nate. It is composed in Sanskrit and it praises Lord Rama as the source of all joy in the universe. And there were only actually originally 6 names in six charanams for the song originally. There's a very beautiful story here. The students of Tyagaraja actually examined the song and they found that it contained 90 names of Lord Rama in Sanskrit. And the disciples said, Tyagaraja said, Guru, can you please expand the song, add 2 more charanams to contain 18 more names? So it eventually becomes 108 names of Rama. And the saint actually added 2 more charanams. And this is actually why, if you listen to the Sahityam carefully, in this entire song, there are 3 charanams containing 3 mudras containing the name of Tyagaraja, while the other 4 songs only contain one of his mudras, only contain his name once. But in this case, because he went back and rewrote, recomposed, added to it, that mudra actually comes 3 times. The second of the Pancharatnes is Duduku Gala in the Ragam Gaulai, again set to Aditalam, also composed in Telugu this time, not Sanskrit. In this song, Tyagaraja takes the blame for himself. And he basically says, I'm taking it upon myself for all the misdeeds of men. The world is not a very nice place. And I wonder who would come and save me. But it's really my fault. This deplorable situation, I'm stuck here. It's really my fault. Who's going to come and save me? The third is Sadinchane, the one that I sang a little bit of, composed in Telugu. This song is a very much of a contrast, this Pancharatne, to the other Pancharatne. Sadinchane is a beautiful, almost lullaby, set truly to where Tyagaraja lovingly chides Krishna for his cleverness. He says, Krishna, you're so clever. You get everything you want done. Your mind is able to achieve everything. Sadinchane o manasa, your mind is truly able to achieve everything. And it's sort of a lullaby where he lovingly criticizes Lord Krishna for his cleverness in getting everything done. The fourth song, Kanakana Ruchira, is in the Ragam Varali. It's actually composed in Telugu as well. In this song, Tyagaraja describes the infinite beauty of Lord Rama in all of his glory. The different characteristics of his appearance, the different characteristics of his countenance, the way in which he smiles, all of those characteristics are beautifully described in this Pancharatne. The last Pancharatne is Yantaro Mahanubavalu, very famous, composed in Sri Ragam. It is said that there's a story behind this Pancharatne. A very famous musician from Kerala actually came to visit Tyagaraja and performed in front of him. Tyagaraja was so enchanted by his performance and thus created Yantaro Mahanubavalu, which translates to, there are so many great men in this world, so many great people in this world who have talent and who do so many things. And Yantaro Mahanubavalu itself actually is a beautiful composition, unparalleled rhythmic composition, I would say, that we have in Carnatic music, and it's traditionally sung as the last of the Pancharatnes. So I hope that was a very quick summary of the Pancharatnes. I guess I can sing one line of each one.
Yes.
Okay. Jagadananda Karaka, Jagadananda Karaka, Jagadananda Karaka, Jagadananda Karaka. Jaya Janaki Prananayaka Jagadananda Karaka. That was in Nati. The second one is in Gola, or Gole, sorry. The third is Arabi, Sadinchine. I'll sing 2 lines since I sang it before as well. Sadinchine, oh minus Sadinchine, oh minus Sadinchine, oh minus Sadinchine. Oh, my next one is Varali. Kana kana ruchira kana ka pasaninu kana kana ruchira kana ka pasaninu kana kana ruchira Last one, of course, is in Sri Ragam. Yantaro Mahanuvavulu. Yantaro Mahanuvavulu. Yantaro Mahanuvavulu. Antariki Vandanamu. Yantaro Mahanuvavulu. Antariki Vandanamu Yantaro Momanu.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I was so fortunate to visit Tyagaraja's birthplace and also the place where all these utsavas are performed in Tanjore. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like what month? You said Bahula Panchami, but which month usually?
Yeah, so traditionally the festival in Tiruvayar itself, which is Tyagaraja Aradhane, the original Aradhane, happens in the months of January to February in Tyagaraja's honor. Anywhere between the date changes depending on the calendar, but happens in the months of January to February, actually at his birthplace. So if you visited, I was lucky enough to actually visit a while back. When you visit, there's a beautiful Tyagaraja temple there, and the temple actually has, the story goes that the idol of Lord Rama that was there was actually found by Tyagaraja sir himself in the Kaveri. So that same Rama is still idolized there and sitting there. And if you go to that temple, something that is very, very inspiring is that the Shruti never stops. The tambura or the Shruti that we play, that I actually have on my phone now as I'm singing, the same Shruti is played non-stop there. And anyone who would like to come can come, sit and sing, practice, do work. I was lucky enough to be able to be there and actually sing a few songs and practice and do basically sadhana or music practice, as we call it, the same way Tyagaraja sir would have himself done in front of his beloved Rama. So that was definitely a beautiful occurrence. Pushya Bahula Panchami is the 5th day of the month of Pushya, I believe. I'm not exactly sure when that falls in terms of the year, but on that day, the tradition of singing the 5 Tyagaraja Ganaraga Pancharatnam on that day came much later. It wasn't sung during Tyagaraja's time or anything. It just became a tradition that happened much later as music lovers and students of music found the Pancharatnam itself beautiful and worth singing in that sense. So.
Yep, you're so very right. It will just give you goosebumps to enter into that sanctum sanctorum of Tyagaraja and his birthplace and the Rama temple and listening to the Shruti. And Cleveland. So it's usually in the month of April. I hope they're doing it virtually this year.
So this past, 2020's Cleveland Tyagaraja Aradhana was canceled. It was originally moved to August and then it was canceled. Traditionally, it always falls around Easter. So the first weekend of the Cleveland Tyagaraja Aradhana always happens around Good Friday and Easter. So anytime between April and May, depending on when the calendar falls. This year, I believe there are talks about it still happening. I am not exactly sure if it is still happening. I believe there's a lot of conversations that need to be had surrounding travel and safety restrictions, taking into account the amount of people who actually come to the Aradhana every year from all over the world. So taking that into account, I hope it will happen, but we'll see.
Yes, yeah. Well, so hopefully next year we'll visit for sure. More so, our daughter will be there. So we are really hoping to. We have been thinking of visiting Cleveland during Aradhana. Then may I invite any other questions from the audience? We have 10 more minutes before we start Hanuman Chalisa and conclude. I want to make use of every minute of this hour. Dr. Biram, Shamalaji, and Dr. Nair, Girija Garu. There's so many learned.
Jahnavi, that is so beautiful.
Thank you so much.
I do have a question. Since you have so much knowledge in what's happening in Carnatic music, what is the trend of last 30, 40, 50 years? Is it getting more popular in India and outside, or is it same, or is it decreasing its popularity? Or what is the trend?
That's a very good question. I may not be qualified to answer all parts of the question, but I will answer it from my perspective. Being a performing musician in North America, in the United States, I have noticed, at least over the past 2 decades, I can say maybe decade and a half since I was very young and started being a part of this music scene, is that the biggest thing that I have noticed is that younger people, my age and younger, students outside of India are taking up this art form, finding the beauty in this art form, the mathematical characteristics, the intricacies of Sahityam, the sheer wonder and complexity of the art form itself is something that a lot of the youngsters have taken up. And I think that has definitely contributed to popularity, if you say so, that word, in the younger generation. That has definitely contributed to how the younger generation trains and learns music. In Chennai, the art form is very much alive and the art form is very much flourishing. We have new artists every day. We have new ideas, new collaborations. I think also to answer your point, the biggest thing that I have seen, and the way I understand it in the past 30, 40, 50 years is that Carnatic music as a whole is always evolving. Music is something that touches on the shared humanity that lives within all of us. And as musicians, as creators, we build that art form and we grow and we develop it to new heights. As Tyagaraja sir in his day was innovating and creating extremely new perspectives, the same way now we have that same kind of innovation. So I would say in the last probably 30, 40, 50 years, you've seen a lot of changes in kacheri format. You've seen a lot of changes in compositional variety. We have had a lot of different composers trying to bring in very different composers into the concert platform, which I think is wonderful because we can really celebrate the composer wealth that we have, the lyrics, the wealth of lyrics that we have from all across the nation. I would also say that as we delve into new forms of what's called manodharmam or improvisational singing, we've seen a lot of development in that over the last 40, 50 years as well, whether it comes to singing very intricate mathematical compositions, coming up with new combinations, changing the way improvisational singing is done. There's been a lot of innovation there. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jahnavi. And it is very melodious.
Thank you.
And you are very knowledgeable. But one thing I can add is Tyagaraja festival in Cleveland happens on the Easter weekend, one day before, one day after. It is a 3-day festival. I was attending almost all of them while I was there for 15 years. Murali Jatla can watch for that. And it is happens in Cleveland State University because there is a professor who encourages that. Thank you very much.
Dr. Bhaskar Garu, if I may add, it goes on like Janvi has said for a couple of weeks, and the concluding part is for 3 days, I think. Janvi, you can tell.
So yeah, no,
Probably you're right.
very, sorry? Yes, 2 weeks. So originally the festival was a shorter amount of time, and as they added musicians, as we have so many musicians, they added different concert slots and everything. So it was originally just one weekend, and then they actually extended it to about 2 weekends. So I believe in total the festival goes around close to anywhere between a week and a half to 2 weeks. It commences the first week, I would say, and then goes into the first weekend with the music competition, actual singing of the Pancharatnas, the opening of the festival, and actually concludes with the following weekend, which is the dance competition and the presentation of dancers as well. So,
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? There is a movie, actually 2 movies, Janvi, in Telugu. One in black and white by Nagaya, a great actor, director, singer on Tyagaya. The Tyagaya by Nagaya, B. Nagaya, I think. Then, about maybe 20 or 30 years ago, Bapu, a great director, has reproduced it with the actor who acted on Shankarabharanam, Somayajulu. So that's on Tyagaya. I think the name is still Tyagaya, I think. Wonderful movies. So my question is, are there any other movies in Tamil or any other languages on Tyagaya, Tyagaraja?
so I am not familiar with them. If there are, I don't know if there are. There might be. I have heard of the Telugu films. I have not watched them, but I'm not sure if there are any Tamil renderings of the film. I know Tyagaraja has made many his compositions, I should say, have made many appearances in popular culture, in different movies and films of that time. But I'm not necessarily sure if there's any sort of biography of his life in Tamil diaspora.
Okay, and there are so many great singers. I think they fulfilled their life as musician by singing Tyagaraja's kritis. Are there some who excelled in singing Tyagaraja kritis, to your knowledge?
So that's a great question. I would say, I think Tyagaraja himself. There are so many people, musicians along the way, who have done so much to not only sing his kritis but bring his kritis to the masses, as I would say. And I think, from what I can say, one of his most famous disciples, Valajapet Venkatrama Bhagavatar, did a great service to this world when he notated down a huge number of his kritis. He made sure that he learned them properly, and those kritis have been handed down for years. At the same time, Vinay Dannamal is another person who I would say who took his kritis at that time when those kritis were being circulated around the nation, who took those kritis and not only notated them but also demonstrated the scope for musical exposition. Because as we all know, in Carnatic music, we have Kalpita Sangeetam and Kalpana Sangeetam. So Kalpita Sangeetam is the Sangeetam or the music that's learned, the songs. And we take from those songs and we have Kalpana Sangeetam or Sangeetam that we actually come up with on the spot. But to have really good improvisational singing, we have to have amazing written songs that exist. And I think Vinay Dannamal is probably one of the many. Obviously, there are many people, but Vinay Dannamal is one of the ones who sticks out as one of the individuals who truly took the compositions, notated them, and then really presented them in a format with musical exposition that was available to all of the musicians of that time, and so on and so forth. We take a lot of our inspiration beyond the song of how to render the sangadis, of how to add sangadis, comes from her rendition and comes from many other yesteryear musicians. So that's what I would say, if that makes sense. That answers your question.
Looks like your dad has something to add.
Yes, please. Murali, Jahnavi's dad, Murali.
Papa, I think you're muted, Dad.
She pretty much covered on that thing. What I was going to share earlier was about, I think somebody was referring to the Cleveland Aradhana stuff. As he was mentioning, correct. I think Jahnavi has, for touchwood, by the grace of the
Correct.
All those things. It is a growth pattern actually.
Yes.
So the continuous singing happened only in the last, I would say, 16 to 17 years. I mean, I've been very, very active with Sundaram with that. So it's a great, chance for all these young minds to
Yes.
take the music to a different level. Shankara.
Yeah, his name is Sundaram. You're right. That's so very right. So then I know that the time is not enough, but we have to conclude with Hanuman Chalisa. To give just a 2-minute break to Janvi, can I read my free translation of Yandaro Mahanubhavulu?
Yeah,
Can
of
I,
course.
with your permission, Janvi?
Absolutely, of course.
So this is something which is so dear to us, Yandaro Mahanubhavulu. And this is again a great tribute to Tyagaraja himself from our side. Salutations to all, adorations to all, adulations to all. So many great people, pundits and gurus, masters and the maestros, adorations to them all, adulations to them all, and salutations to them all. Seeing the moonlight beauty of the Almighty in the lakes of their hearts, they delight day and night, so many yogis. Singing the Sama songs, the hymns and psalms, and the Vedic chants, blessed are they, filled with purity in their hearts, so many seers and scholars. Controlling the senses and conquering the self, witnessing the divinity everywhere in the life, so many mystics and ascetics. Surrendering unto Supreme with unconditional love, wondering about His majesty, they love and live, so many servants and devotees. Singing in rhapsody the glories of the omniscience and omnipresence, bringing in prosody the stories of the protector and the omnipotence, so many musicians and the composers. Wearing the garlands made of divine attributes, moving in this world with love, they live. Here is our tribute, so many great personalities, enjoying the beauty and serenity of nature, everywhere in the world, encountering purity and divinity in every creature, mild or wild, so many famous people, the sages and saints, Sukha, Saunaka, Sananda, and the sun god, Narada, Prahlada, Shankara, and Tumbura, moon and Hanuman, gods and goddesses, pure and sovereign, living in peace, reveling in bliss, they bless us all from heaven, so many devotees and deities. Knowing the vastness and greatness of the Lord and the universe, knowing the capacity of the Almighty, praising with a sacred verse, spreading power of supremacy that can destroy our nations, chanting supreme glory and enchanting the world, dispelling the ignorance, so many noble people. Well versed in scriptural knowledge of Ramayana, Gita, and Puranas, immersed in rapture of the ever-illumining consciousness, approving any of many paths of devotion to reach you, O Rama, admiring the work or worship or meditation to catch you and reach you, so many poets and prophets and saints, out of more love, out of pure love, and out of sheer love, O Lord Rama, they love you, your name and your fame, your story and your glory. So many great people, pundits and gurus, masters and maestros, adorations to them all, adulations to them all, and salutations to them all. Yandaro Mahanubhavalu, Andariki Vandanamalu. Thank you. Thank you so
Very
much.
nice, Uncle. That was beautiful. Very nice.
This is the translation, free translation of Endaro Mahanubhavulu, just to inspire those who are here to listen to those songs and then enjoy. Over to you, Janvi, to conclude with Hanuman Chalisa and Mangala Shlokas.
Shri Guru Charan Saroj Raj Nij Mana Mukur Sudhar Bharano Raghubar Vimal Yasa Jodayak Palachar बुद्धिहीन तनु जानिके सुमिरो पवन कुमार बल बुद्धि विद्या देहु मोहि हरहु कलेश विकार जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर जय कपीस तिहु लोक उजागर राम दूत अतुलित बल धामा अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नामा महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी कुमति निवार सुमति के संगी कंचन वरण विराज सुवेशा कानन कुंडल कुंचित केशा हत वज्र और ध्वजा विराजे कांधे मूंज जनेऊ साजे शंकर सुवन केसरी नंदन तेज प्रताप महा जगवंदन विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर राम काज करिबे को आतुर प्रभु चरित्र सुनिबे को रसिया राम लखन सीता मन बसिया सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सिंह दिखावा विकट रूप धरि लंक जरावा भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारे रामचंद्र के काज सवारे लाए सजीवन लखन जियाए श्री रघुवीर हर्षि उर लाए रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बड़ाई तुम मम प्रिय भरत सम भाई सहस बदन तुम रोजस गावे अस कही श्रीपति कंठ लगावे सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीषा नारद शारद सहित ईश यम कुबेर दिगपाल जहाते कवि कोविद कही सके कहाते तुम उपकार सुग्रीव कीना राम मिलाए राजपद दीना तुम्हरो मंत्र विभीषण माना लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना जुग सहस्त्र जो जन पर भानु लील्योताहि मधुर पल जानु प्रभु मुद्रिका मुख माही जलधि लांघि गए अचरज नाई दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते सुगम अनुग्रह तुमरे तेते राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे होत न आज्ञा बिनु पैसारे सब सुख लहे तुम्हारी शरणा तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना आपन तेज समारो आपे तीनों लोक हांकते कापे भूत पिशाच निकट आवे महावीर जब नाम सुनावे नासे रोग हरे सब बीरा जपत निरंतर हनुमत बीरा संकट से हनुमान छुड़ावे मन क्रम वचन ध्यान जो लावे सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे सोई अमित जीवन फल पावे। चारों जुग प्रताप तुम्हारा है प्रसिद्ध जगत उजियारा। साधु संत के तुम रखवारे असुर निकंदन राम दुलारे। अष्ट सिद्धि नवनिधि के दाता अस पर दीन जानकी माता। राम रसायन तुमरे पासा सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा। तुम्हारे भजन राम को पावे जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे। अंत काल रघुवरपुर जाई जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई। और देवता चित्तन धरई हनुमत से सर्व सुख करई। संकट कटे मिटई सब पीरा जो सुमिरै हनुमत बलबीरा। जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई कृपा करो गुरुदेव की नाई। जो सत बार पाठ कर कोई छूटहि बंदी महासुख होय। जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा होय सिद्धि साखी गौरीशा। तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा कीजय नाथ हृदय महादेरा। पवन तनय संकट हरण मूर्ति रूप सिया राम। राम लखन सीता सहित हृदय बसहु सुर भूप सिया राम।
Thank you. If you could conclude with Mangala Shloka.
Is there a Manga Shloka that's done?
Yeah, no, whatever you want. Yeah.
Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Thank you. Dr. Nair.
It's already past 8 o'clock, so we'll conclude here. Thank you, Janvi, for a great presentation. And
Thank
we
you
look
so
forward
much.
to having you again and again.
Absolutely.
And I don't know how much everyone has appreciated your presentation. So you almost uniformly, and I want to congratulate your dad also for, he can be rightfully proud. Yes.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm really blessed and grateful to be here.
Thank you, and Shubhratri.
Shubhratri.
Shubhratri. Thank you. Shubhratri.